G'day everybody, welcome back to the channel. Don't forget, for those of you who want to keep coming back, don't forget to click subscribe and leave a comment and like this channel too as well. Alright, look, tonight I want to talk about something that I got through one of my Facebook posts on my feed. A colleague sent me something about apparently a quote that Bruce Lee said. And I'll read it out very quickly to you, and I'll put it up here as well for all of you to download and use at your discretion. But it states that Bruce Lee said, "Don't speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. Your body doesn't know the difference. Words are energy and cast spells, and that's why it's called spelling. Change the way you speak about yourself, and you can change your life. What you're not changing, you're also choosing." Now, I think whether Bruce Lee said them or not, in reality, they're very pertinent words. In the many years that I've worked in clinical practice and mental health, I've found that a lot of people adopt a negative narrative about themselves, and they start to believe that something that they've got that's an intrinsic part of them, they view it as bad or evil or foreign or obnoxious or in the way of their success. And so they adapt this narrative and adopt it too, but they adapt it to suit their individual understanding and perspective of it. What they fail to understand, a lot of people fail to understand, is that if you've got this, if it's a part of who you are, then make it who you are. Value it as part of your individuality. Put it to purpose. One of the things recently I was talking to somebody that viewed their anxiety as, they say, "I live with anxiety. I've lived with anxiety since I was 8 years old." And I go, "Okay, well, let's look at why you've lived with anxiety." And I said, "Let's underline here." And so she talked to me about that she's lived with it. And she talked from a very negative point of view about how anxiety has interfered with her life. And when she'd finished her blurb, I go, "I'm sorry, but I see that anxiety has created a lot of opportunities for you, but you're not seeing them as opportunities." And she was dumbstruck by that, as a lot of people do about this. I try to flip the paradigm around. I say, "You said to me," and I use your words, "you've lived with anxiety since you were 8." And I said, "You've lived with it. You've adapted it so that you can live. You've actually got, better the devil you know. You've got to be familiar with your anxiety and how it works for you." I said, "Why does anxiety have to be negative?" Now, I've got a previous podcast up about anxiety and the bioevolutionary purpose of it. So make sure you click like, and subscribe to this channel, and you can possibly access that particular that video blog. But in line again, what Bruce Lee says is stop talking negatively about yourself, because you start to believe all these negative narratives. And that's where we limit ourselves. We limit the capacities we have to contribute to our own and others' lives. And if you're a parent, you've got children, and they're going to have their own anxieties and depressions and limitations and impairments. Why do we have to add to them by the way we talk about ourselves? I think that if we say, "I've got anxiety," start saying, "So what has that done for me?" And not, "What has that done against me?" which is what we commonly start doing. We say, "Well, what's it done for me? How has it helped me live? I live with anxiety, and it's a great life." Anxiety, its purpose is to keep me alive when there's a perceived threat around here. Now, I can go into a lot more detail, but it's in one of the previous blogs again. So when you live with anxiety, you're actually misunderstanding yourself, that you've used the energy that the medical model calls anxiety. You've used that survival energy to survive, to get you to your objective. And that might be to get home safely. That might be to get out of a domestic violence situation. That might be to improve your environment somehow. So anxiety has served a purpose. You're living with anxiety. Fantastic. It's kept you alive. It's kept you safe. So why get rid of it? What if we simply re-understood the energy that the medical narrative calls anxiety? We re-understand it and say, let's put that to good use. Let's understand how come it's a part of who I am today. Let's revalue it and let's say, I'm a better person because this anxiety has given me these qualities. And instead of demonizing it, and which in sequential order is you demonize yourself, why don't we simply say, this has done some good in my life. This has saved me from potential harm, but because I've misunderstood it, because I've been trained and educated to believe that these are bad things in my life and I have to medicate them extensively, why don't I start looking at what it's done for me? Again, not what it's done to me, but what it's done for me. I want you just to shift that narrative a little bit. So, as Bruce Lee says, don't talk negatively about yourself. You know, your memory, there are pyramidal brain cells, nerve cells in your brain that are shaped like a pyramid, right? And they're implicated intrinsically in long-term memory storage and retrieval. Now, there's also little functions in our little not functions in our brain, little features, how we say, in our brain, little structures that are in the middle of our limbic system. And one in particular vibrates at the frequency of our own voice. And it's responsible for what we call our inner voice, where we hear ourselves talk to ourselves. Now, when you say something negatively, that vibrates at a frequency through those pyramidal brain cells to deeply sink in a negative thought about us and a negative memory. And the more you rehearse that, the stronger that memory becomes. But exactly the same can happen for positive self-talk. If you talk positively about yourself, the same effect can happen. So we start to set up an actual physical link to a belief system. We can see this in the nerves. We've measured this. We've measured the integrity of myelin sheaths around nerves themselves. And we know that with rehearsal they get thicker. And we know that if it's a positive memory, that they get thicker yet again. And they repair faster. It's just it's the frequency of positivity. But look, that's another blog. That's something you can look into. Nikola Tesla's throwers at 432 frequencies and all that sort of thing, because it adds up to 9. It's incredible stuff. No time for it here tonight. But look into that in your own time. But more importantly, about that self-talk and how you program yourself physically for self-growth or for self-deprivation. Your body doesn't know the difference between whether you're joking as a negative thing about yourself or whether you're serious, right? I'm a depressed person and I'm always going to be that way, and I'm going to limit myself just by hearing myself talk this way. Right? Even with sarcasm, which we Aussies are bloody good at, you know, we talk sarcastically about ourselves. Sure, it gives us a thick skin, but that thick skin is permeable. So I think it's way past time. Let's start talking positively about ourselves. Positive affirmations. It's not voodoo. It's not witchcraft. It's not flower power. It's fact, and it's measurable. We see it in electron microscopes. We see it in functional resonance, fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging. Sorry, my dyslexia. Blame COVID. I feel that we're going to have a losing battle if we don't get on top of this soon. All right? And as Bruce Lee says, apparently says, change the way you speak about yourself and you can change your life. Yes, yes. Start saying, I can do this. I live with anxiety. And I'm turning that energy that anxious energy into something beneficial to me in my life. All right. I recommend you click on this link, get a copy of this particular post or this particular picture, and use it as a mantra for yourself. For at least a week, look at it and absorb it. Read it out to yourself every day. This is a very powerful move, people. Stop. And it doesn't matter whether it's anxiety or depression or bipolar or schizophrenia and Tourette's. Every behavior has an appropriate context in which that behavior exists. It has a purpose. It truly has a purpose. For example, bipolar can be used on stage. Multiple personalities can be used in theatre and acting because you can easily fit into a different character and a different role. That's just one example. There are so many. But to come up with creative solutions to antiquated problems simply by flipping the paradigm upside down, change your narrative about you. Stop, please, absorbing into your very being negative narratives that say that you are not worthy of full potential. Start saying to yourself, yes, you know what, I am worthy of at least more potential than what I'm being limited by. I'm worthy of being able to create my identity, of me. This is my life and I'm responsible for it. These are my choices and I'm responsible for them. Start taking responsibility for the choices you make about belittling yourself and depreciating your potential. Start taking responsibility. Switch it around. Don't talk negatively about yourself, even as a joke, because your body doesn't know the difference. And remember, at the end of the day, because it's your life and your responsibility, as Bruce Lee apparently says, what you're not changing, you're also choosing. Huh? So you should be your first line of defense and the first person you go to for help. You should be that first person you go to for help. Right? What you're not changing, you're also choosing. Change for the better, shift the narrative, and stop talking negatively about yourself. Every behavior has its purpose. How has these behaviors served their purpose in your life to get you to where you are right now, sitting in that seat, watching me on the phone or your computer and listening to these words? And remember what Bruce Lee has always said, okay? Change the way you speak about yourself and you can change your life. All right. Leave your comments in the link below, eh? Dr. Ken signing out.